Boundaries versus fortressing. Boundaries. Boundaries are the bodyguards to our standards for how we expect to be treated. Boundaries involve knowing what is both deal breaker and deal maker criteria, and are set and then acted upon in order to keep a person safe and sane. Boundaries involve 3 steps. 1. Deciding how you expect to be treated. 2. Asserting yourself if someone crosses that boundary. 3. Taking action if they continue to cross the line, which usually involves distancing yourself, or if a child crosses the line, a consequence would be implemented. 4. Continually checking in with yourself emotionally to see if any boundaries and standards need to be evaluated. If you are feeling angry, resentful, irritated, or hurt, these are generally signs that you have had a boundary violated. While it's true that no one else knows what your boundaries are, and that it's important that you assert yourself, it is reasonable to expect that another person would and should understand the basics of adult behavior. Don't hit, yell, cheat, steal, lie, etc. Trying to set boundaries with an abusive person can put you in danger. They know what they're doing, and they are using force to gain power and control over you. You would be wise to distance yourself from this person, especially if they are or have ever been physically abusive, as the odds of them killing you are significantly higher than the odds of them ever changing. Your boundaries will grow and change over time as you grow and change, and your boundaries are an extension of who you are and an important part of treating yourself with dignity and respect. So while you may love the abusive person in your life, it can't be at the expense of loving yourself enough to keep yourself safe and sane. If a person has a solid enough sense of who they are and what they are about, they will not be swayed by the negative opinions of others. And for many of us, developing a solid sense of self takes time and practice. Setting boundaries, at first, might feel exhausting, like you have to fight a bunch of battles and continually be the bad guy by saying no or putting your foot down and not allowing others to walk all over you or to mistreat you. This sentence says, but over time it really does get easier, and eventually you will get to the point where you agonize over setting boundaries. I assume that she means eventually you will get to the point where you don't agonize over setting boundaries. Having healthy boundaries will just be an extension of who you are and will come as naturally as doing any other type of self-care like brushing your teeth in the morning. Fortressing. Fortressing is a very common stage that most people go through when they first learn to set boundaries, especially if they have been hurt multiple times. Instead of drawing lines in the sand in order to keep problematic people or situations at bay, they build high walls in an attempt to keep everyone out and to keep themselves safe and sane. This may happen for a number of reasons. Perhaps they've been hurt too many times, or perhaps they don't know what a healthy boundary is, so they take it too far. Learning to navigate the difference between a healthy line in the sand and building a high wall takes time and practice. News story. After I got out of an abusive relationship, I didn't trust anyone. I realized I also had a lot of abusive friends and family members in my life, too. It was like pulling a string on a sweater, and my reality was unraveling. It was terrifying, and I just wanted to be alone. I isolated myself for about a year, and I still keep people at arm's length. It took me a while to even be okay with the idea of meeting new people and building trust, and this time around my friendships and relationships have been much better. The key really is going slow and realizing that it's much easier to leave when you see red flags early on, if you aren't so quick to make someone your whole world. Once I realized I could take things at my own pace, I stopped fortressing so much and began easing into having healthier boundaries. It took me a while to figure out what healthy boundaries were and how to make them, but I'm slowly getting the hang of it. It's very exciting. Kim. Sincere communication versus insincere communication. Sincere communication. Sincere communication involves being open, honest, accountable, and solutions-oriented to the degree that the other person has earned your trust. When two people engage in open, honest, sincere, solutions-oriented communication, there is a clarity, understanding, and the ability for the relationship to strengthen and grow. There is no healthy relationship without sincere communication. There is only learning how to twist yourself into an emotional pretzel and to try and cope with someone who isn't ready, willing, or able to have the relationship grow. In addition, it is not only a mistake, it can be dangerous and possibly even deadly to have open, honest, sincere, and solutions-oriented communication with someone whose actions have shown you that they are actively working against you and your relationship when you aren't looking, or if they are dangerous or destructive in any way, especially if they have hinted at, threatened, or have a history of aggression, abuse, or violence of any kind. Having sincere communication with an abusive person will only serve to set you up to be used, abused, and exploited. It is wise to see a person's actions for what they really are, instead of justifying them because of how you feel about them, or because you hope they could be different someday. Just given enough love, understanding, rehab, religion, or therapy, or thinking that you need to be open with them because they are your parent or your spouse. There is no shortage of emotional manipulators out there who can say all of the right things and can pretend to have healthy communication and can pretend to work towards the greater good of the relationship, especially after they've been caught actively working against their partner, lying, cheating, stealing, when their partner wasn't looking. Many targets of abusive people often feel a lot of guilt for not having open and honest communication with an abusive person. They often feel they are doing something wrong by not responding to their text messages or with planning to leave. Please know, stopping sincere communication with an abusive person isn't problematic. It's healthy, and it's time you go into self-protection mode. It is a mistake to have open communication with someone who has been actively hurting you, especially if they take what you tell them when you are being open and then later use it against you. Leaving an abusive relationship can be a lot like leaving a hostage situation. Think of it this way. It would be a mistake to explain to your captor that you are planning on escaping because they are too controlling and you don't like being held hostage. This is why it's important to see if the communication is sincere. The only way to tell is if the actions line up with words over a consistent period of time. If they don't, then they aren't being sincere. It's a mistake to be in a relationship or dynamic where you are being sincere while the other person isn't. This isn't a relationship. You are being manipulated. And the best manipulators out there will act sincerely and friendly the whole time while they are plotting to work against you. As the saying goes, don't confuse an enemy's smile with them baring their teeth. So while you are being sincere, they are gathering information against you. So while you are holding on to hope that this time will be different, they are working on furthering their own selfish agenda, to which you will pay the price, which may be financially, with them draining the accounts or putting you in debt you don't know about, or physically, psychologically, and emotionally by potentially exposing you to diseases if they are chronically cheating, not to mention stress, anxiety, depression, or other physical harm. Insincere communication. Insincere communication is closed, dishonest, and self-serving. It's where a person's words do not match their actions consistently over time, and with most emotional manipulators, this is the only type of communication they have, although it takes most of us a while to realize this. They are chronic liars, even if the truth would work better. Insincere communication involves anything that is designed to gain and keep power and control over their target, which usually includes the silent treatment, stonewalling, gaslighting, pot stirring, triangulating, circular conversations, false promises of change, future faking, diverting, blame shifting, and overall conversations that are designed to frustrate, confuse, upset, provoke, blame, mislead, or push their target over the edge. Insincere communication brings about chronic confusion and serves to leave the person who is working towards a solution feeling distrusting of their partner, insecure in the relationship, and frustrated that any issue they have never seems to get resolved. It also creates a situation where they feel they have to walk on eggshells and that they cannot bring up any concerns or issues about their partner. In the long run, this lowers their self-esteem and their feelings of shame and embarrassment for staying in a relationship like this. As a side note, people who have codependency issues may also have unhealthy communication. So while they may also give the silent treatment or not be willing to face issues that the relationship has, the driving force behind their behavior is very different. An emotional manipulator is driven to get and keep power and control over their target so that they win, whereas a codependent person is driven to get and keep their relationship together at all costs because they feel incomplete being single. News story. I kept thinking that all of his yelling and put downs would stop if I could just get through to him about how hurtful he was being. I finally filed for divorce, and that's when he said he'd go to therapy. Big mistake. After the first few sessions, I opened up about how I felt and really made myself vulnerable, and during our next fight, he turned and used everything I said against me. I didn't even realize another person could be so hateful. He said that I was such a loser, that it was no wonder why my mother committed suicide. That hurt me on so many different levels, but it was at that point I realized that not only did he not love me, he didn't even like me, and that I needed to leave. Victoria. An attitude of cooperation versus an attitude of competition. An attitude of cooperation. An attitude of cooperation is one of mutual support and trust and is based on open, honest, sincere communication where both people are sincerely working towards a win-win solution. It's what true teamwork looks like in motion, and it can only exist if both people have the same goal. An attitude of cooperation does not mean that you are the one who continually needs to try to fix the relationship or work as a team when the other person's actions are selfish and continually show that they are not working towards being a team. If you are the only person on the team, then there is no team. This is you being manipulated. An attitude of competition. An attitude of competition is not one of teamwork. It's a one-sided win-lose dynamic in which one person seeks to get their way at the expense of the other. There is a time and place for an attitude of competition, but to have that kind of attitude in a relationship will kill it, because it is no longer a team. An attitude of competition is a me versus you dynamic, where one person seeks to get their wants and needs met regardless of the damage done to the other person. And if one person is sadistic, then they are intentionally damaging the other person and enjoying the process. Narcissists are driven by a blinding degree of selfishness, which comes out as them needing to have power and control over others or how others perceive them. Their me versus you attitude really shows itself if they are challenged in any way, in ways that are either real or perceived. When a person is operating with a me versus you dynamic, they are not looking to reach a solution. They are looking to win. For a person who is abusive, this usually means they will do whatever they need to do to keep getting their way, aka win. They might become intimidating or threatening in order to get and keep power and control. This usually means them yelling louder, giving the silent treatment, making subtle or not so subtle put-downs, planting seeds of insecurity, devaluing, diminishing, or degrading their partner, making threats or becoming physically aggressive. Or they might go the exact opposite way and play the part of really wanting to work as a team. They might come across as sincerely remorseful, saying and doing all of the right things, including going to therapy, being nice, compassionate, considerate, involved, and caring. It's like a light switch was flipped. For their partner, this instant great behavior is such a relief, because they're given the false hope that perhaps their partner has finally seen the error of their ways and has turned a corner. They may feel really optimistic, reaffirming to themselves that they knew if they just held on to hope long enough that their partner would change and would stop all of their lying, cheating, stealing, siphoning funds, abusing, or lack of empathy and remorse. But yet they often can't shake this feeling that this long-awaited change seems so easy for their partner. And if it was so easy, then why didn't they change a long time ago? How come now their partner has suddenly been able to develop so much insight into their behavior and seems so invested in the relationship? And while they feel relieved that things have turned a corner, they often feel that something about the speed of their partner's change feels off. but they don't want to rock the boat because they've been waiting for this miracle for a long time, and now that it's here, they don't want to live in the past or question things too much. And that's exactly why this manipulative person is doing all these things. It's to continue giving their partner false hope, so that they will stick around, and so they can use them some more. Also, playing the part of the repentant partner is a great way for them to rebuild their public image, and to get others to rally around in support of them. I will tell you that it's been my experience that when someone's behavior changes so radically, it's usually not sincere. It's usually them acting the part in order to keep the game going on their terms. Even though movies and the media would like us to believe that people's behavior can change so radically in the blink of an eye, the reality is that a person doesn't go from a nightmarish soap opera type behavior to a fairy tale perfect partner, generally ever, let alone over the span of a few days. True change takes time, effort, and sincere accountability for wrongdoings. What's usually going on is that they've gotten better at hiding what they're up to, and when they think no one is looking, they are up to the same old deceitful tricks. Narcissists hate it when the game doesn't end on their terms, and it's not uncommon for them to beg for forgiveness and to act like the perfect partner, only to break up with their partner a few days or weeks later. And if they do leave, they might give some sort of pity-inducing apology, saying, "I don't want to hurt you anymore," or blaming their leaving on someone else by saying something like, "I have to leave because my ex or child or parent has cancer and I have to take care of them," which is probably not true, or them saying nothing. Then their partner comes home to an empty house and bank account. When you are on the receiving end of this, it can be really difficult to wrap your mind around what you're experiencing because they can seem so sincere. They might convince their partner to renew their vows, have another baby, adopt a pet, or buy a house, things that would register to a normal person as sincere, committed action. But to an emotional manipulator, there is nothing sincere about what they say and do. It's all about saying what they need to say in order to get what they want, and it's all about them. When you are dealing with someone who has a pattern of deceitful behavior, it is a mistake to assume they are telling the truth when their actions have shown that they are lying. To deny what is really going on is only going to make you vulnerable. And no, you don't have trust issues that need to be worked out. You would be wise to have trust issues with a person who has lying issues. News story. Even though we were married, I never felt like we were on the same team. The cheating, the lies, the manipulations, they were never ending, and they were all designed for him to get his way. I stayed married until I couldn't hang in there anymore, because I thought that's what commitment was. Being committed to a person who isn't on the same team, and who has no desire to work as a team, is a mistake, and one that I'll never make again. Bobby. Doing all the right things versus saying all the right things. Doing all the right things. Doing all the right things means the person who has damaged the relationship is doing the work to repair that damage and to repair the relationship. It does not mean that you need to do the work of fixing the relationship or trying to become a better partner in an effort to avoid abuse or to try and keep them faithful. If you are twisting yourself into an emotional pretzel to make things work and are taking responsibility for their destructive actions, this isn't healthy and you are being manipulated. Saying all the right things. Saying all the right things means saying whatever someone needs to hear, but generally not having the consistent actions to back up the talk. Remember, talk isn't just cheap, it's free. A manipulative person will say all kinds of things in order to get what they want. They will apologize, suggest that they go to therapy, promise that things will be different, or that they will change. Talk means nothing if the consistent actions aren't there, and by actions, I mean them willing to live a life of total transparency and be fully accountable for the damage they've done, and to not only never have it happen again, but to also rebuild the trust that was broken. If a person continues to say all the right things and have all the right actions, but you catch them doing the same things again, then they aren't truly remorseful and they haven't truly changed. News story. Looking back on things, our relationship ran a pattern. I could always tell when he was cheating, because he'd either pick a fight so he could break up with me, or grow silent for a week, or he'd announce out of the blue that he wanted a divorce. I'd catch him cheating, and then he'd rage at me, blaming me for finding out. I'd leave, and then he'd start promising change. He really did a great job at saying all the right things. He had me believing that he was a sex addict, so that now the problem was his sex addiction, so it wasn't his fault. Then he promised therapy. Then he promised I could look at his phone or his computer whenever I wanted to. Each time he cheated, I thought it would be the last, and it never was. The only thing that changed was that he got better at hiding his cheating. He had multiple email accounts, multiple phones, credit cards I didn't know about, you name it. Talk is cheap, and these kinds of people lie, lie, lie. They lie when the truth would work better. It's a mistake to trust anything that they ever say. Focus on their actions, and also realize that whatever you do know about is only about 10% of what's really going on. Victoria. Persistence and commitment versus power and control. Persistence and commitment. Persistence and commitment are two important qualities at making a relationship work, but persistence and commitment are only healthy if both people treat each other and the relationship with dignity, respect, honesty, and sincerity. Without those foundational pieces in place, there is no relationship, there's only a manipulationship. Power and control. Power and control are two qualities that are often confused for persistence and commitment. The qualities of persistence and commitment are exploited by a narcissist when their target finally has had enough and either wants to leave or wants to start drawing boundaries. What tends to happen is that if the emotional manipulator gets caught doing something, yet again, and if they want to keep their target around because they want to continue using them, then they will often use guilt, obligation, pity, sympathy, blame, shame, fear, or intimidation to keep them around. They will generally insist that this time it will be different. And then when their partner holds the line that they want to break up or want to divorce, the emotional manipulator will spin the situation, making themselves the victim and blaming their partner for not wanting to work on things or not being committed enough. Now that they've spun things around, they play the baby bird with a broken wing card and exploit their target's emotions of guilt, sympathy, and hope. They will often say such things as, "I need help. How can you leave me now?" Translation: you are supposed to feel sorry for me and then feel obligated to stay. Ideally, you will chalk up all of my problematic behavior to my alcoholism, drug or sex addiction, mental illness, or because of a communication issue between us. This way, I can shift the focus off of my accountability and onto your feeling sorry for me, and ideally taking care of me while my bad behavior destroys you. I can't believe you are giving up on us so easily. Translation: I can't believe you are trying to leave me. I know I lie, cheat, siphon funds, and manipulate you, but you're supposed to continue to stay with me until I decide to leave you. I'm willing to change for you. The least you can do is give me another chance. Translation: I am in control here, and I say when this relationship ends. So for the time being, I'm going to be on really good behavior, and I'm going to hide my problematic behavior even better. I don't deserve you. I'm tired of causing you pain. Translation: I really want you to think I'm a great person with empathy, remorse, and compassion. I'm also saying this to punish you, so that you'll feel extra bad, because you now think I have the insight, caring, and concern that you've always hoped I've had. So when I do come back around, after I've got my fill of cheating on you, you'll gladly take me back because you'll be holding on to hope that I do care about you. But I don't. I was just out cheating and didn't want to feel guilty about it, so I broke up with you, planted the seeds that I'm a good person, and set the stage for you to work harder at making the relationship work when I do come back. This is all smoke and mirrors designed to confuse you and to pull you back into the fog of manipulation. Don't fall for it. This is not what persistence and commitment look like. This is manipulation, and it's the main way narcissists gain and keep power and control over their targets. A narcissist's behavior, especially when they are trying to regain control, often comes across as really persistent. They will double or triple their efforts at making things work, and to their target and the outside world, it can really come across as though they are truly sorry. Because for those of us who aren't highly manipulative, we wouldn't dream of being that persistent if we weren't sincere. Our mistake is projecting our thoughts and morals onto them. However, the good news is that once you see manipulative behavior for what it is, you'll have a hard time unseeing it. Remember, emotional manipulators want what they want, when they want it, as much as they want it, and feel entitled and justified in getting it, regardless if it hurts their children, their spouse, their family, even themselves in the long run. Your value system is not their value system. After all, look at their behavior. Would you ever treat them or anyone else like that? So what does power and control masked as persistence and commitment look like? It can be them apologizing, crying, begging, pleading, being on their best behavior, going to church or therapy or both. They may send flowers to their target's work or call friends and family in an attempt to get them to encourage the target to stay in the relationship. They may call or email their target 50 times, just wanting them to pick up so they can say they are sorry. They may call their target's parents and tell them they are sorry for how they behaved. But don't mistake this grand show for anything other than the idealization phase of the cycle of narcissistic abuse. It's all future faking, and it's where charm meets intensity. And all this intensity and future faking can really suck a person back in, because after all, it's designed to. The only comparison I can make to a person who really hasn't ever experienced this is to think of how a small child acts when he or she really wants a toy. The child sets his or her sights on a toy and then goes into overdrive trying to convince their parents to get it for them. If the parents say no, the child will up the stakes of the game. They will use guilt, charm, and manipulation. They will promise the sun and the moon if that's what it takes to get them that toy. They will tell their parents how much they love them, and that if that doesn't work, they will tell them how much they hate them. They will try to be cute, then they will pout and be mean. They will beg, cry, plead, yell, slam doors, throw a temper tantrum, and go on, and they don't let up, especially if their parents have given in before. They know that if they just say the right things long enough, they'll eventually wear them down. If the parents are trying to set boundaries with the child, and vow to themselves that this time they are going to hold the line in the sand, the child's behavior will continue to escalate. They will try every angle until they either wear the parents down or they give up. They will beg, plead, cry, yell, threaten, tell the parents they are mean or that they no longer love them. They may run crying to the grandparents or whoever else might take pity on them and give them what they want. If there is any little negotiation or sign of weakness from the parent, the child knows they've hit a weak spot. When they do, they focus on that weak spot and triple their efforts to get them to cave. They might seem like such a sad and lost puppy without you, that you might have all kinds of guilt for shutting the door. Now, back to the abuser. Or turning out the lights on that puppy, that your heart breaks into a dozen pieces as it scratches and whimpers at the door. And while this is the hardest thing you've ever had to do, there's a part of you that is angry. After all, you didn't want this relationship to end, but damn, you can't stay if they're going to keep doing what they're doing. You feel like you're between a rock and a hard place. You feel like you are the one suffering the consequences. You never wanted any of this. You just wanted to love them and to be happily married. But you can't be treated like this. You know you can't be treated like this. This is beyond workable stuff. Or is it? Maybe things could be fixed. Maybe you could give them one last chance. After all, you've been through so much with them already. But you promised yourself last time that you'd leave if they did this again. You wonder if you're codependent. You wonder if you're crazy. You wonder why they continue to cheat and lie. You wonder why you can't seem to get through to them, and why they seem to have no moral compass when you aren't around. You wonder if any of this is normal. And the whole time you are trying to sort out what to do and how you feel, the whimpering puppy gets louder. But stop for a second and really think about this. They aren't a scared puppy, or a small child, or a baby bird with a broken wing. They are a full-grown adult who does whatever the hell they want to do when you aren't looking. Who is this person? A baby bird with a broken wing, or a manipulative adult who has no moral compass? And you love them. But do they love you? You can't help but wonder, because a person who loves you wouldn't do this. Deep down, you know this isn't love. That what you are experiencing is not even in the zip code of love. And yet you feel guilty for wanting to break up with or cut off contact with them. This is a person who lies, deceives, cheats, steals, treats you and your relationship like an afterthought. You feel like the mean one, and the one who isn't really committed to working on the relationship. Wait, what? How did things get so spun around? You were being manipulated. That's how. And the intensity of their actions is often mistaken by others as persistence and commitment, and the actions of a person deeply in love and sincerely remorseful. They are not. These are the actions of someone trying to regain power and control over their target by wearing them down and manipulating them. Normal people don't have behavior that destroys the relationship and then become insistent that their partner needs to forgive and forget and give them a second or a 20-second chance at making things right. And if their partner is tired of all their lies, they don't blame their partner for having a problem with commitment. Only manipulative people think and act this way. What can be especially crazy-making is that others don't often see this behavior as problematic. Even many therapists or church counselors often make the mistake of taking actions at face value and assuming that everyone is sincere in their desire to change. This is dangerous thinking and can, and often does, keep a person trapped in an abusive relationship for years or decades longer than they need to be. How a person acts when no one else is around is who they really are. Do yourself a favor and don't try to change them. Doing so will only frustrate you and enrage them, not to mention cost you time, money, energy, and your sanity. It's okay and healthy to walk away from people who cause destruction in your life. News story. I kept going back because he was so persistent. He'd call and text dozens of times a day. He'd send flowers. He would drive by my house. I mistook all of that attention for him caring and thinking he was trying to win me back, when really it was about dominance and him winning. He saw me as an object and our relationship as a game. Cheryl. The biggest turning point in my recovery was in asking myself if I would treat them or someone else how they were treating me. This was such an important concept and piece of healing for me, and it remains so still today. If I ever find myself questioning how I'm being treated and wondering who has the issue, if it's them or me, I begin to review every interaction and I ask myself, would I treat someone else like that? If the answer was no, then I know that no one should be doing it to me either. Lucy.